Got some interesting little bits and pieces. You know, Samuel and Saul. There's kind of this thing from Samuel calling a king an evil thing, that they wanted this king to rule over them. And he ended up with Saul. Started good, sounded good, didn't go well. But then you have this Saul David thing going on, where David has realized, he got the memo, he got the download to not lay a finger on God's anointed one, even if it wasn't good. Saul didn't get that memo. Saul couldn't figure out that he needed to not lay a hand on David. Oh, the runaround, again and again and again, between David and Saul. Till eventually they're up against that war at the end, and they don't want David involved. And it sounds weird, like he's untrustworthy, but it didn't really matter, because David goes the other way, finds out, oh, he's got work to do, somebody's looting his camp. So he's not even there when the war happens, where Saul has to fall on his own sword. So Saul raised his hand to do harm towards David, and then ultimately had to fall on his own sword. Just came up against something about Nero at the time. He too raised his hands at God's anointed one, and what was his end? He fell on his own sword, so to speak. And then you look at Hitler against the Jews, and how did he come to his end? And yeah, he too had to fall on his own sword. So Jew or Christian, even modern day, was still God's people, even if they haven't come to Christ. And I'm not going to get into that, but still had some sort of anointing on them in some capacity. So just listening, because I heard about Nero and Paul, and I don't know the exact timeline on the history of whether or not Paul was taking pot shots at Nero or not, I don't know. But Nero was definitely messing with early Christians. But to look at his behavior of wanting everybody to do his way or else he'd kill them, that is a pathological narcissist. And so, like, what these kings, these false gods, like, their pride in everything is how they use their power is in a very abusive, destructive way. And it kind of reminds you of that, like, the child king on Game of Thrones. Those don't make good kings. Good kings are good servants. And good servants actually care about their people, not how they're going to abuse their people to rule with that iron fist. And it's like, Judas Iscariot. I think that one went a little bit different, but he messed with Jesus and kaplap. It's like, you don't mess with God's children. You don't mess with God's anointed ones. And in these instances, the weird way that God's chosen ones did not end up with the blood on their hand to retaliate. The blood went back on the hands it belonged. So the one who tried to do God's children harm, the blood's on their hands, and they end up having to fall on their own sword. So it's, David didn't have to kill Saul. So, and David was nowhere near it. So there's some things there, like, take my lens of narcissism and then shine it backwards and be like, yeah. People who put themselves up here and God's anointed ones down there, gone. It doesn't mean there wasn't a lot of damage along the way, but ultimately they got their comeuppance.